Welcome to episode number 11 of ISPC Tailboard Talks. I'm your host, Mark, along with my co-host, Jerry. How you doing today, Jerry?
Oh, man, doing great. Good to be back. 11 episodes already? Wow.
Number 11, hard to believe. Just moving right along and climbing up the ladder episode.
And it's a good thing that we brought our guest on since we're climbing the ladder.
That's right.
Because, you got to have fall protection when you're at height. So our guest today...
Above 4 feet.
Above 4 feet, right?
Yeah, so harnessing safety today is our title, the importance of fall protection. So kind of fitting. We'll talk about all things fall protection today. It's a good thing.
So Cat Lee is our guest today, and we'll get into that. But let's talk about our sponsor real quick, because something near and dear to my heart. T&D PowerSkills brings you this episode today. Take back control of your training message. As a training manager today, you're challenged with the task of controlling your line worker training programs. Things change fast, man, and you need a solution that has the flexibility to keep up. Know that T&D PowerSkills is that solution for you. A comprehensive 78-unit curriculum designed with the adult learner in mind. You can control your message by customizing the program to meet your needs. You can control your delivery with the flexibility to scale from a single unit refresher training to a fully DOL certified 8,000-hour program. And you can control your costs. You know exactly what it's going to cost when you sign up with the program. So to learn more, visit us online, tdpowerskills.com, tdpowerskills.com. And if you use the referral Tailboard 2024, you get an exclusive 5% listener discount on your first year LMS subscription. So Tailboard 2024 at tdpowerskills.com. Give me a call. Check it out. I'd love to show you what we can do for you.
Good deal. Thanks, Jerry. Yeah, we know a little bit about T&D PowerSkills. Great program. So awesome. So before we get to our guest today, I just wanted to take an opportunity at our ISPC Tailboard Talk topic to talk a little bit about some fall protection, and then we'll maybe get some more information on it when we bring our guest Kat in. So training, right? So the employer must provide training to each employee who might be exposed to fall hazards. That's OSHA's requirement of the employer, and that program must enable the employee to be able to recognize the hazards of falling and be able to use procedures then in order to minimize those hazards. So that's the training requirement from OSHA. The other thing that I wanted to talk about when it comes to fall protection is the care, maintenance, and inspection of your fall protection, right? So this is obviously there to protect you as an individual. It's there to protect your life and hopefully save you should you have to go through the event of a fall. Obviously, the ideal would be to prevent yourself from falling, but if you do, you want to make sure that equipment's going to work properly.
It's one of those things you hope you never need.
Well, it's that insurance policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to pay for it or purchase it or buy it. But boy, if you need it, you're going to be glad you did, right? So, and it's one of those things you got to care for, right? So you can't, throw your fall protection in the corner of the tool bin and let it lay out in the weather, in the dirt, and the environment. You got to, no different than any other PPE, your rubber goods, your FR clothing, your safety glasses, you name it. Your fall protection needs to be cared for with the same care that you'd take care of any other PPE. So, make sure it's in good working condition. Maintenance and inspection, obviously inspection. So I see it all the time. I was a worker for many years. I was a supervisor for many years. It still makes me shake my head, the amount of people that will just grab PPE every day and just put it on and use it, right? And not even look at it. Did something change from the last time I used it? We just assume because it was in our truck or it was in my locker or, I had it hanging on a hook at the job site that nothing happened to it, right? How do you know that? The same thing gets done with rubber PPE. The same thing gets done with fall protection, is doing that inspection prior to each use, right?
It only takes a minute to do so. I mean, it's not like you're taking 2 hours out of your day to do something like that. Complacency is what kills you in this industry. You
Mm-hmm.
become complacent with the way you use your PPE or the way that you do your job. It's going to catch up with you one day.
Yep.
So you can't become complacent even with the use and inspection of your PPE. Doesn't take but a second to do it. Right before you put it on, run your hands over, look at all the stitches, make sure there's no fraying, make sure there's no cuts or tears or
Yep.
even contamination, oil spots or hydraulic fluid or whatever. So it doesn't take but a second, and it could mean you have 1,000 billion more seconds after that fact if you get into that point where you need it,
You're talking literally 30 seconds, 45 seconds to do a before use inspection on this thing. It's just not, check the tag, make sure the date's good, and make sure these things require a competent person inspection, typically once a year, unless something has happened, unless it was involved in a fall or exposed to harsh environment, something like that nature. But yeah, it's a very quick ask to make sure that when this thing needs to perform, it's able to perform. And, the other thing I didn't is how you wear this fall protection as well, right? I can't tell you the amount of times you go on a job site, and I would bet you more people than not are not wearing their fall protection correctly, right? They don't have their leg straps tightened properly. They don't have their D-ring in the proper position in the center of their back, and on and on and on. And yeah, is it okay till something happens? Well, maybe. But when that time comes, you're going to wish you adjusted that properly and put that harness on the correct way. Because when you're hanging there from the middle of your back, it might be minutes. It might be longer till somebody can assist you or help you, or you can self-rescue yourself. It's going to be quite uncomfortable just because you didn't properly put that thing on.
And it's like wearing a seatbelt when you're in the car. You get used to wearing it correctly, doing things the right way. Then it's going to feel weird not doing it the right way. So if you have the leg straps, up where they're supposed to be on your thighs and snug and fitting just right, and the chest strap, the D-ring in the right space, it's going to feel awkward at first. It may feel different because you're not used to wearing it that way. But once you become accustomed to how it's supposed to fit, it's going to feel right, and it's going to feel odd not doing it the right way. So just take deal with that mental switch to doing it right, and it gets easier, man. Doing the right thing gets easier every time you do it. And that's across the board, no matter what. Doing the right thing gets easier the more you do it.
I'm thinking maybe we ought to have a show and tell where we just put people in a harness that is not properly fit and just let them hang for a couple minutes, and then that might eliminate the problem across the board, right?
I'll tell you what, one catch of one thing will fix the proper placement and wearing of the.
Exactly.
Speaking of harnesses, man, before we talk to our illustrious guest today, one of my favorite people. We get to spend a lot of time together during trade show season. I get to travel a lot and spend a lot of time with her. One of my favorite people on the planet, bar none. Legit, no bull. She can hear me right now, so I'm not gonna. I'm saying that. No, it's true, Kat. Seriously. But before we get into that, I got to tell you one more time about our sponsor, T&D PowerSkills. Take control of your training, control your message, control your delivery, and control your costs. And now you can even control your language, because right now we have 57 units of our training material that have Spanish subtitles. We're currently working on getting all of our student workbooks translated to Spanish and getting the rest of the subtitles for Spanish translation for the rest of our units. So that's an ongoing process. It's a very big process, but we know it's very necessary. If you have Spanish speakers in your training program that are more comfortable with Spanish, find out how many units can help you. Like I said, we have 57, and we're working on all the student workbooks. tdpowerskills.com. Give me a shout there. Shoot me an email from there. If you use the referral code Tailboard 2024, I'll give you an exclusive podcast listener 5% discount on your first year LMS subscription. 5%. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it adds up quickly. Now, on to our guest.
Yeah, perfect. So our guest today, Kat Clemmons, co-owner, vice president of JELCO. Glad to have you with us, Kat. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to have this opportunity to spend some time with y'all.
Funny inside joke. Last time I saw Kat, she was on one wheel wrecking one of those conference displays. So we won't go down that road, but maybe fall protection would have helped her that day. Maybe we should have had her in a harness when we were doing that.
Maybe it would have helped, but I can speak that after
It,
that simulator, impaired driving is not something
Right?
yeah,
that you want to ever
and
do.
laughing at somebody else isn't always the best either, because karma comes to get you. Because it wasn't but an hour later I was in the display right beside it. So yeah, we did some damage.
Yeah, which happened to be my display, by the way, that second one. So,
Right.
So all the
Yeah.
tables were taken out, but where's the video of you, Mark? Was that
I'm not
airdropped
sure
to the
who has
entire
that.
conference as well, or?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure where that got to. I don't have a copy of that. I probably ought to get my hands on that. Who knows where that'll end up.
on the big screen next year, probably, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come back to bite me somewhere. So
Good times.
cool.
Always fun at the shows with y'all. So
Always
always a
fun,
good time.
always fun. We like to start these off, just give you an opportunity, Kat, to kind of, what's your journey been like? What got you to where you are today?
Interesting that you should ask that. Interesting story. So, the condensed version, if you will. Um, so, when you introduced me, you said co-owner and vice president of JELCO. Our family also has another fall protection company by the name of Elk River Safety
Hmm.
Belt, and that's actually where the journey started. So, in the fall of 1988, my parents and my uncle Terry started a fall protection company by the name of Elk River Safety Belt. How Elk River was born was that a few years prior, my dad had been a sales rep for Miller Fall Protection when Miller was still Miller in Franklin, Pennsylvania, before they were bought by anybody. Okay. And he thought that they had some opportunities with some different things, and so my uncle Terry had a sewing plant, and he said, "Hey, if I can sell it, can you sew it?" And Terry said, "Sewing. There just may be bigger machines involved, right?" And so Elk River Safety Belt was born with 12 line items. We had waist belts because this was before full body harnesses were required. Our lanyards were rope and wire rope. There were no energy absorbers then. And most would say, the older generations would probably say, oh, that's when we had the good hardware. We had the single lock and snap hooks. It's before we had to go to double locking. And the transition, we think the transition from free climb into fall restraint was bad. Those of us that have been around a long time, you would have thought the world was going to end when we went from single lock and snap hooks to double locking, because like I can't do that, right? And now it's second nature to use, the third fit, to be able to, open your hardware, right? Same thing with the evolution of going from a waist belt, to a full body harness. So Elk River was started in 1988 with a focus really on the construction and industrial market. There were only 3 fall protection companies out there then: MSA, the original Miller, and the original DBI Sala, long before Capital Safety was born or anything like that. And so we're the 4th oldest in the states. Um, Company grew, expanded in the telecom market in the 90s with the emergence of cell towers, because back then the FCC put out a mandate that 10,000 cell phone towers had to be put up in the next however many years because of this emerging cell phone technology. And now, I mean, it was so long ago, and just kind of crazy to think about where cell phones have gone, right?
Hmm.
Um,
I don't think they're going to stick. It's a passing
Yeah,
thought,
I
I
think
believe.
we're going to go back to ham radios, I
Landlines,
think.
yeah.
So landlines, ham radios, kind of thing. No, so fast forward, and then in 1997, they made the decision to purchase JELCO, which was then known as JE Lorty Company out of Montreal, JELCO was third generation family business. There were no heirs at that time. There was a mass exodus to go offshore. The owner, Michelle, did not want everything that his family had built to be moved offshore, right? Keep the name, move manufacturing offshore. It seemed like a good fit. So Elk River bought JELCO, and then that expanded our footprint of verticals that we were in to include utility, all kinds of stuff like that. And then in 2005, my parents and my Uncle Terry decided it was time to split ways and go back to just being family, right? My sister stayed working for my Uncle Terry at Elk River doing his purchasing, and my mom and dad took JELCO. So everything in Montreal, Terry kept Elk River. And that was in '05. And then in '08, my parents unfortunately passed in a plane crash on their way to Montreal. It was my dad's plane. And out of my siblings and I, there's three of us, I was the one that quit my job and went to Montreal and dove headfirst in. My sister was still working for the business, but for Uncle Terry on the Elk River side. My brother at that time was a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and he since retired in 2015. After 33 years, he retired as a full-bird colonel. So we appreciate his service, and he's done some very cool things in the
Yeah.
military. Brings a lot to the table in our business with that experience as well.
Does it make you
Um,
call him Colonel at Thanksgiving?
it depends, but sometimes salute soldier. We may or may not have had some of those fun moments. So, soldier slash baby sister, I think sometimes they're interchangeable, right, with the
Yep.
communication. Anyway, so because I had grown up in the business, had always worked in the business my entire time, and then had briefly left to was on what I would call a sabbatical. Thought I was going to do my own thing, right? But then mother and daddy passed and quit and came back, dove headfirst in to and looking at what the industry was like in 2008 on the JELCO side then was the emergence of fall restraint. WPFRD was really starting to come about more so on the East Coast. It started in the Northeast and then made its way across the country. And so coming into that, I had some interesting moments because a lot of people wanted to know why was I in their pole yard and what could I tell them, that could be insightful to them and what would they learn from me, right? Because obviously I kind of stuck out a little bit, various reasons, but I learned early on, hold your own, right, with the guys. And the moment I started dishing it right back to the people that were giving me a hard time, I the respect came, if that makes sense, right?
Sure.
And it's one of those things that this industry, I love the utility space because they are very, very loyal to those, in the industry. They will support you, going to give you a hard time until the end. There's a level of trust that you have to have because it's what top five most dangerous job out there in the world, right? And you've got to be able to, as a lineman, you got to be able to have trust in your equipment, right? Of what you're using and all that. So anyway, I learned a lot in the early years. It's been a lot of fun, a whole lot of fun. And then in 2020, JELCO had the chance to buy Elk River back. And so this time it was JELCO buying Elk River, and that expanded us to where in the last 4.5 years, we now have three manufacturing facilities in the state of Alabama, warehouse there, and then a facility in Montreal, and are expanding with some partnerships to bring online a couple other manufacturing options. And so that puts us in about 14 or 15 verticals of fall protection. So pretty much anything that you need working at heights, we can get you taken care of. And it's interesting though with us because of being in so many verticals, and you've seen the evolution in the industry. So we've went into fall restraint, and then now you're talking about arc flash, and then the kind of the what's next, right? Seems like rescue is what's next on the radar, if you will. But with us being in verticals, we are able to provide a user. We can take something that maybe substation has previously been using, like an industrial size harness with an integrated waist belt, maybe that it needed arc flash compliant because of the work that they were doing. But say the company now has decided to go arc flash across the board to further mitigate the risk and try to keep somebody from grabbing the wrong thing off the shelf. We do a material change, and here you go, right? And we've got you something to go. So that's kind of where we are now. And we also do things differently. I spend my time in the field. My brother and I, the way we kind of split it is I tell everybody he does everything on the inside and I do everything on the outside. Pre-COVID, I traveled about 220 days a year. I love, love, love being in the field, working with our users. It makes me very attached to everybody in the field and in the industry. And it's hard because there's only so much time, and it's hard for me to keep up with everybody, but I love it. So that's kind
And
of.
Kat, I think that's what kind of separates you guys, any company in this industry that dedicates that much personal time to the people that they're servicing. It makes a difference. Like you said, this industry is very loyal, but they're loyal if you give them the loyalty first. You have to create that space. I've equated to some of my friends that are not in this industry. It's sort of like watching a National Geographic documentary on wolves. They've brought down the elk, and the people that are in this industry are the wolves that are eating at the carcass. And if you're trying to get in, you have to circle the pack a little bit until they let you in. And then once you're in, kind of thing. But you have to prove you have to prove that you can be part of the pack and play nice with everybody, and do it for the right reasons. And that's what I love about it is you and your family, from everything I've seen, are doing it for the right reasons. And you actually recently spoke at ECOS about that, right?
I did, absolutely, and that I love that opportunity. And so for us, and if you've ever, for those that are listening that have ever heard me do a presentation, would I love for you to buy one of our products and use them? Absolutely. But what's most important is whatever safety equipment that you're using, that you're making a choice to use, that you're using it correctly per the manufacturer's instructions so that you can go home at the end of the day. The things that I've heard and I've seen, much like you spoke about earlier, Mark, the people grabbing stuff, right? Thinking, oh, I'm just going to use this. And it's like, oh, no, we don't need to do that kind of
Right.
thing. You're making a choice on you. And the thing with any PPE, whether it's your cover up, whatever it is, you never know when you're going to need it. And that's why you should always use it, check it, inspect it, so that it's going to work when it needs to and work correctly. And that's the biggest thing with fall protection is the amount of people that I see that are like, oh, I don't do my leg straps. Well, you know what, buddy? Why are you wearing it then?
Yeah.
You might as well not wear it. And I recently was driving down the road here in Pensacola, and there was a company, they had a boom over the traffic, they were working on the street light over the traffic, and his harness was not attached to his anchorage point. And I picked up the phone and I called the company. Like, hey, guess what? It's not going to do you any good, right? It does you no good. And that's the biggest thing is that you need to use it and use it correctly. And that's being in the field, getting feedback. Some of our bucket harnesses, the nuances that we have and our style of them is so that they're going to be able to be used and used correctly, easy to adjust, stay in adjustment, and that it's going to become second nature. Just like to your point, Jerry, we're doing the right thing becomes second nature and it becomes weird not having it, right? And if you're always used to not having your leg straps snapped or having it unhooked so that oh, I'm just going to undo my lanyard so I can stand up on the lip of the bucket and I'm just going to make this move really quick. No, it's not going to do you any good, right? And then two people are making choices because there was never a consequence to their action before. So, but I love to be in the field. Have we done everything absolutely right? Probably not. But, we do care about our customers and try to do everything that we can, right? But I don't think there's any perfect company out there.
Well, I will tell you this that I mean I have to tout JELCO real quick because I've been in the business for 9 years and I was hired to film, and when I go out and shoot updates for T&D PowerSkills, I'm in the bucket and we spend all day in the bucket, and I have to wear a harness. The JELCO harness that I have is the second harness that I've had since I've been in this industry. It is absolutely the most comfortable harness that I've ever worn. I mean, it's the second one that I've had, but I've tried on several. And I can wear this thing all day, super comfortable. I forget that it's there mainly because it's strapped right, it's fit right. I believe one of our first meetings was you showing me how to put it on properly, Kat. So I you have a great product is what I'm trying to say, and you doing it for the right reasons makes it even better.
And that's the thing. We want to do it because we want to allow people to go home every day. You know, a little history in the market when shock absorbing lanyards came out, and at first we had the external shock pack, and then we made the move to the POI, the internal shock pack. My dad's the one that developed the internal shock pack.
Cool.
And so he worked with major webbing company over in Anniston, Alabama, on the design and the development of that many years ago. Didn't get a patent, didn't do anything like that because it was for the greater good of the industry, right? And so we were the first ones to come out with that external shock pack. And so it's just kind of always been a what are we doing to help the everybody working at Heights as a whole, right? And that's our goal. It's not for us. I don't, there's no instant gratification for me, but it's, are we allowing people to go home safe at the end of the day? That's what's most important.
Sometimes sometimes the calling of the greater good outweighs the self-preservation, right? Like, yeah, okay, you guys developed it, but I mean that's commendable to say, listen, we're not going to in this case patent this device because we want everybody on the same level
Correct.
playing field, right? Like you mentioned earlier, you don't really care whose equipment you're wearing as long as that equipment is being used like it's supposed to and it's going to provide the protection you need. Yeah, you'd love everybody to buy JELCO, fall protection, but at the end of the day, obviously that's, not going to happen for one reason or another. But again, it's commendable that those things are being done for the greater good of the industry, right? That's the bottom line, that everybody goes home the same way they came to work. And should they have to, be in a fall incident, hopefully everything works as it should and they're wearing it properly and the outcome is a positive one.
Absolutely. We have at our office in Coleman, we have a shadow box display of a very used harness and lanyard that was sent to us from a steel erection company when they were building the Cowboys Stadium, the current Cowboys Stadium. And a beam had come loose, hit the guy in the head, and he came off what he was working on, right? But he was in our harness and lanyard. It saved his life. He had it adjusted. He was wearing it correctly, all that kind of stuff. And so again, it's one of those you never know, right? What's going to happen, but it saved his life. And you hear about stuff like that, and that's just the whole. You need to use it, and it honestly, because I sometimes I feel like I'm too attached to the industry on a personal level of caring about people, but it just makes me sick when I hear, people making shortcuts or like, oh, I do that all the time. It's no big deal. And I'm like, no. And I will start just,
Mm-hmm.
chewing somebody out for like, hey, you shouldn't
It's
be
all
doing that,
preventable.
right?
It's a choice.
I
It's a personal choice to, Jerry said about seatbelts. It's a personal choice not to put your seatbelt on. But then you get in a bad wreck and God forbid you survive. I don't want to hear you complain that, now you're in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, right? Because you made a personal choice not to wear that protective device. And it's no different with fall protection or any other PPE, that if you're making the conscious choice not to use it as it's meant to be used, then kind of got to live with it.
And here's the thing: is that you may have to live with it. I have a friend of mine who chose not to wear a seatbelt, got in a wreck, got thrown out of her Jeep as it was flipping, and lost both legs. Now she has to live with the new normal for her, right? So it's the same thing. You may die, but you also may have to live with the consequences of not doing it right.
100%. And so talking about the fit, and Mark, when you were talking about, inspection and then fit and stuff like that, OSHA had put out something middle of the year 23 maybe about clarifying part of 1926, where the statement right now is kind of vague around proper fit. It actually doesn't spell out fall protection. And so that's what they're looking at updating, is for it to go ahead and spell out the proper fit of fall protection. Because wearing it incorrectly or an improper fit can do a lot of damage, right? Are you going to live? Yes. And I'm glad to see them doing that, even though it's on the construction side. I hope it's going to go ahead and be carried over across the board, because yes, the employer has a responsibility to provide your fall protection equipment. There also has to be, yes, a responsibility on the user for it fitting properly, adjusted correctly, but I think the employer shouldn't be able to just be able to wash their hands
Sure.
at, well, I gave it to you, and you know, I didn't check to see if it fit you. Oh, that's what we had on the shelf,
Yeah.
and you needed a large or you needed a medium, and I gave you an extra
Right.
large. What's the difference, kind of thing, right? And so I am glad to see OSHA start addressing that and looking at that, and hoping it's going to carry over, because the fit of equipment is a big thing that I talk about, and making sure you have the proper fit.
I agree completely. Some of these things take a organization like OSHA to move the needle. I think, maybe one of the things why some of these things don't move as quickly as, let's say, the users think they should move, is because of potentially the lack of incidents that cause irreversible harm, right? So to somebody like you as a manufacturer, or us as users, well, that's common sense. Why wouldn't you wear it properly, right? But as long as people continue to get away with it and there's no ill effect of that decision, one, it justifies them continuing to do it. Two, it may take the regulatory bodies that much longer to react to it and say, all right, we need to do something so that people conform. And so I get it, but it's frustrating. I've had this conversation about other aspects of our industry as well. But, hopefully they step up, because, at the end of the day, you're talking about potentially the difference between life and death, right? And do I survive a fall or don't I survive a fall? And if it's just because I didn't put it on properly.
When you look at the revision before last for ANSI for harnesses, fall indicators came about then. I
Hmm.
I would think it's a no-brainer. My harness has been impacted in a fall. You would remove it from service, right? But guess what? As they all say, everything is written in red. There is a reason that ANSI
Yep.
had to come out and say you have to have a fall indicator so that
Yep.
people will remove it from service, right? And I,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
So, question. Let's talk about that. Wearing it improperly, it may save your life, but it may cause other issues or injuries. What are some injuries or issues that could come out of that?
I It's hard for me to be specific, because it could all have to do with where you didn't have it adjusted correctly, right? And you want to talk about leg straps. There is a very graphic photograph that I have seen of a lineman in the emergency room that did not have his leg straps adjusted correctly. And he's things are not attached the way
Mm,
that they're supposed to be attached, kind of thing, right? I pretty much, right? And so
yeah.
when you were
Yeah.
talking earlier about that, that's what I was thinking
Yeah.
about. And I mean, and it's a
Yeah.
make you sick,
Yeah.
but that can happen, okay? You start looking at where's your chest strap, right? And is your chest strap fitting appropriately? Because depending on how you fall, are you falling head first? Are you falling feet first? If your chest strap's not where it's supposed to be, you could find yourself in a situation where it's going to end up choking you, right? And coming up in your neck and being in an appropriate place. If everything is just too loose, you go head first, you got a chance of coming out of it,
Yeah.
right? If it's a head first fall and that kind of thing. And so, and that's also when you look at the back strap, right? Another thing that ANSI had as a requirement, that back strap to help mitigate how much movement can be there and hopefully restrict the opportunity for something to come off, right, in the event of a fall. And so, from a testing standpoint, we do head first, feet first, all the extremes of testing. And yes, we do test with things out of adjustment and adjustment and all that to see what will happen. But you're looking at, the force that's generated. But again, where your adjustments are.
Mhm.
And they're all important. So,
Absolutely. And you also have to think, man, you have two femoral arteries running through your
Mhm.
legs, right at your thighs.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And that's where suspension trauma comes in, right? And having your suspension trauma straps and that ability
Well,
to take the
and
pressure
another
off while
another
you're
thing you
waiting to do
kind of
your.
touched on, depending how properly adjusted you are fit wise, and also where your attachments are, it could mean the difference whether you end up upside down or right side up in your harness or out of your harness. I mean, there's a lot that can go south if that D ring in the middle of your back is between the shoulder blades versus down in your lower back can just mean the
Correct.
difference of
Absolutely.
a lot of problems, or hey, you just got to get me down from here and I'll be okay. I just, it's still to this day. And maybe when I was coming into this industry, I might have had some of these same, well, why do I need to do that? Or does it really matter? But it doesn't take long to figure out that all this stuff is there for your protection. And why would you subject yourself to potential life altering implications just because I didn't want to tighten my leg straps or just because I didn't want to inspect my heart? The more I see and the more I'm around this industry, it's like, what are you guys thinking? Like, this is common sense, people. Come on.
No, for sure. And that's why it drives me nuts. And
Yeah.
I will get very vocal with people about their stuff being
Yep.
not fitting correctly, right? And no, I'm not going to be an expert on somebody else's product, but I've been known to
Sure.
readjust someone's harness as
Yeah.
as needed to get, even if it's not ours, be like, hey,
Yeah.
look, this is no, no,
Yeah.
we got to fix this, right, kind of thing. And it just
I just have one more question. You kind of touched on it a little bit ago about the next thing might be self-rescue when it comes to fall protection. I mean, obviously, you're at the front end of the fall protection industry. We're kind of at the middle or back end, right? We get it once it's figured out. But where's fall protection going? You talked about back in the 80s when you started into it as a family and kind of where it was and the evolution. What's next? Like, for the majority of people out there that think, all right, this is already too much. Where do you see things going?
so I think as far as like trying to make a general statement across multiple verticals, right? And then also, speak into the utility industry, I think we've seen a trend in products where there was a period of time where things were over engineered and over designed on the harness market, for example. And now there's a trend like, hey, we don't need all this excess,
Hmm.
the whole KISS principle, right? Keep it simple, stupid, just less is more, don't need all of the extra. Um, Stepping to the rescue piece of it, that's kind of the last area that doesn't have the standards around it, but ARB is, on the arborist side, standards coming down the pipe, right, on arborists now. And when you look at the overlap between the different sectors, like the rope access people, right? That would have been doing the windmills and, your turbines and stuff like that, confined space. But then now you're starting to see overlap between that and the tower market, right? And Clemmons-Steel, whether it's transmission or even on the utility side. I mean, on the telecom side, right? For broadcast towers, whatever the case may be. So as you're seeing integration come across, that's where we are seeing some changes in like harness design and stuff like that, but then also trying to mesh it back to where making it where it's more applicable for that particular vertical, right? And being cognizant of what do you actually need for your application, rather than taking and saying, hey, this is already made, even though it's used in this space, you can just deal with it and make it work, right? You want something for what you're actually doing. And then to that piece, the rescue component, the days of linemen taking a hand line up in their bucket. There's a lot of linemen I talk to, the older guys, that I never went in my bucket. I never would have gone up in my bucket without my hand line. And now there's a certain percentage of people that you're like, why would I take my hand line in my bucket with me? Well, I don't do that. I don't need it, right? And so there's been an evolution of the work process, right? With that and what you're doing and how you're doing your work in the air. As far as being able to get out of the bucket, it can be as simple as like your hand line or doing a figure eight. There's mechanical devices out there, electric devices, that are fancy and can get you off of towers and stuff like that. And then just simple, like just a basic, like our D2 that we have, for example, right? But looking at rescue, and there is now, and one of those things that if you find yourself in a situation, and if it's an emergency situation where you've got to get out of your bucket, okay, how are you going to get down? The number of people that I've spoken to that have been like, well, we've never had that happen before. Well, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. OSHA may not have a standard around it yet, but the fact that the products are prevalent on the market, that's not going to help you in a wrongful death case with a family.
Yeah.
It's, and I feel greasy, kind of slimy. I sound like an ambulance chaser when I phrase it like that, but that's the reality, right? And so when you talk about people that are the expert witnesses and stuff like that, when you know that something's available and you made a choice not to spend that money because it's never happened before, OSHA may not cite you because there's nothing to cite on, but again, that's not going to help a family in a wrongful death.
Right. There's always two trials. There's the initial accident litigation, then the civil litigation, the wrongful death litigation.
Absolutely, but as far as the future of fall protection and kind of going, I don't know that really answered your question that you asked. I see more coming around rescue, right, and being able. It's tower rescue. I think tower rescue is further ahead, than aerial rescue. But not only is it buckets, it's man lifts, it's everything, right? And how are you going to get down? We've done a kit. Our longest kit that we've done was 300 foot. For somebody that had a Bronto Skylift. I don't want to go. I didn't want to go test it. That's a little high for me, I think. But it's I think that's kind of the next and what people are really starting to look at right now.
If you do test it, will there be video?
Absolutely, just for you.
We'll make sure to send you those impairment goggles to try it out too.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Jerry enjoys my videos. I think we'll get some videos.
Look, I wouldn't test it either. I've been. We were filming a couple of years ago, and the guy that was in the bucket with me, he's one of the trainers for him. We had finished wrapping filming, and he said, "Man, you want to go up to the top?" I was like, "How far is the top?" And I think we were at 100 feet at that moment. And he said, "I think we'll go. It'll go another 150 feet." And we went another 50 feet, and I was like, "This is way plenty." I'm like, I am done. And I even had my JELCO harness on.
Kat, it's been a pleasure getting to learn a little about JELCO and your company and your journey and stuff. If people are in the market for some fall protection, tell them how they can find you guys.
Yeah, you can absolutely go to the website www.jelco.ca. You can give us a call at 256-739-5959 or send an email to sales, SALES, at
Cool.
jelco.ca. And we'll be happy to work with you. If there's anything that we can do to be a resource for you, we absolutely want to do that. And if we can't do it, then we want to make sure and connect you with the right people that
Awesome.
can and get you what you need.
And look, Kat, you've got guys all over. Your Texas guy Charlie is amazing, and then you have Doug on the East Coast. I mean, on the West Coast. Excuse me.
West Coast. Yep.
You cover
Doug on the
East
West
Coast. Who else do you have that I haven't met yet?
Got Trevor and Mark in Canada. Don't think you've met them yet.
Mm-mm.
And then my favorite sales rep, my husband Jay, our U.S.
Ah,
sales
that's
manager.
my
So
dude, man.
yes, he's your dude. He's my
Love Jay.
favorite one. But we've got a network of manufacturers reps
Awesome.
across North America as well.
Yeah.
So we've got you covered. And
All of them stand-up people, at least the ones that I know. Stand-up companies, stand-up individuals working for them, doing the right thing for the right reasons, providing a great product. Kat, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate the
Cool.
opportunity. It was a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate the time.
If you're in an area where there's a trade show going on, IP, TEC, SCE, NWPPA. I mean, you're at all of them, Kat. Y'all cover pretty much everything, every show, all the rodeos and stuff like that. So if you want to see the JELCO products and see the quality of the manufacturer, make sure you check them out.
Please come see us. And then if you ever find yourself in North Alabama and you want to come and see the factory and see what we do, our doors are always open. So give us a call and we'd love to have you come for a visit and see what we do.
I need to do that. I haven't been to
We'd
the
love to
factory
have
yet.
everybody. Would love to have y'all come and visit us for sure.
Well, thanks again, Kat. Appreciate having you. Jerry, take us home.
We got to tell you about our sponsor one more time. Today's episode is brought to you by T&D PowerSkills. Take control of your line worker training, control your message, control your delivery, and control your cost. 57 units, comprehensive line worker training program. tdpowerskills.com. Check us out. Use referral code Tailboard2024. Get an exclusive 5% listener discount. The views and opinions shared in this podcast are the personal viewpoints of the participants and may not necessarily reflect the stance of ISPC, the Institute for Safety and Power Line Construction, or its staff. It is highly advised to consult your company management before implementing any actions or policy changes. Please support our sponsors bringing this content to you. And for more episodes of ISPC Tailboard Talks, subscribe in your favorite podcatcher and be sure to leave a review. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, everybody. Good to see y'all again.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. We'll see you next time on ISPC Tailboard Talks.